The story begins in the quiet Japanese countryside, surrounded by endless green rice fields and calm, peaceful air. A man named Jin Mita has recently left his regular job behind and started a new life as a farmer in a small town. Right now, he finishes taking care of his eggplants and steps out of the greenhouse, stretching a little as he looks toward his rice fields. From experience, he can already tell it's harvest time. As Jin walks over to check the fields, something unusual catches attention. Not his, but a bird's. The bird stands near the muddy water, staring at something strange buried inside, and honestly, what it sees is definitely not normal for a rice field. Lying in the mud is a blonde girl wearing full armor. Now, usually rice fields have snails, tadpoles, maybe some frogs, not a whole medieval night. So when Jin notices something shiny in his field, he immediately assumes someone dumped trash there illegally. Already annoyed, he rushes over, ready to catch whoever did it. But when he gets close, he freezes. Instead of trash, there's a young woman, collapsed and barely conscious, dressed like she walked straight out of a fantasy world. She lets out a weak groan, clearly in pain. Jin stares, completely confused, wondering how a foreign cosplayer ended up face down in his rice field of all places. Like, seriously? Of all places, why here? Trying to help, Jin gently calls out to her. Slowly, the girl opens her eyes. As she regains consciousness, Jin gets a proper look at her. Fair skin, long golden hair, and bright emerald eyes. For a moment, he's completely stunned. He's never seen someone this beautiful before. He asks if she understands him, but instead of calming down, the girl gets flustered. She looks at him with suspicion and tells him to stay away. Jin is left speechless. He's the owner of the field, yet somehow he's the suspicious one here. That's like someone breaking into your house and then telling you to leave. The girl looks around, confused, clearly not recognizing anything. Jin starts getting irritated. He points out that she's standing on his rice field and demands to know what she's doing there. But instead of answering, she just looks even more shocked, as if she's been dropped into a completely different world. At that moment, Jin realizes something important. She didn't come here on purpose. And whatever's going on, it feels like trouble. Deciding. It's better not to get involved. He turns and starts walking away, telling her not to trespass or bother other people again. But the girl quickly stops him. She asks him where they are. Jin pauses, confused, wondering if she's still half asleep. But seeing how serious she looks, he simply answers, "They're in Japan." That answer only confuses her even more. She's never heard of such a place. Now Jin is even more concerned. Something is definitely not right here. So he asks her name and where she came from. The girl straightens herself and introduces herself with pride as Saraphim Stadfeld, the eldest daughter of a knight family serving the kingdom of Lephoria. Jin blinks. Once? Twice. Yeah, he has absolutely no idea what she's talking about. He's never heard of any kingdom like that, and now he's starting to think she's just one of those hardcore role players who take things way too seriously, like anime fans who refuse to break character. Seraphim, however, is clearly offended. She cannot believe that a mere farmer is questioning her identity, let alone mocking her. From her perspective, her kingdom is powerful. Anyone should know it. As she tries to draw her sword to defend her honor, her body suddenly weakens. She wobbles, struggling to stay upright. It becomes clear that she hasn't been resting properly for days, maybe even longer. Her vision fades, and just like that, she collapses again. Jin watches her fall, sighing to himself. Leaving her under the blazing sun is obviously not an option. Even if she's strange, he's not heartless. So, with no other choice, he picks her up. Sometime later, Seraphim slowly opens her eyes again. This time, she wakes up to a peaceful scene. The sound of flowing water, rustling grass, and unfamiliar creatures echoing around her. It feels calm, almost too calm. She realizes Jin is carrying her. By the time they arrive at his home, a traditional Japanese house, Jin lets out a sigh of relief. He tells her they've reached his place and that she should rest. But almost immediately he asks her to get down because, well, her armor is insanely heavy. Jin genuinely thought it was just for cosplay, but now he's starting to question that. The weight alone is no joke. Then, out of nowhere, Seraphim casually jumps over a tall wall like it's nothing. Jin just stands there, staring. At this point, he can only think one thing. Cosplayers these days are built different. Seraphim stands quietly for a moment, taking in the size of Jin's house. From the outside alone, she's already impressed, but once he leads her inside, her surprise only grows stronger. The interior is clean, spacious, and far more elegant than she ever expected. To her, this doesn't look like a farmer's home at all. Jin casually tells her it's nothing special, just a normal house you could find anywhere. But judging by her expression, she clearly doesn't believe that for even a second. Still, she steps inside. Almost immediately, Jin stops her and points down, telling her to remove her shoes, and especially that dirty armor. After taking it off, Seraphim looks around again, this time more freely. Without the heavy armor, her appearance stands out even more, and Jin can't help but think she looks like some kind of foreign celebrity. Then he notices something else. She's covered in dirt, so naturally he suggests she take a bath. That suggestion shocks her. A bath? In a farmer's house? Jin sighs, slightly annoyed, and makes it clear he's not poor. Without wasting time, he goes ahead and starts filling the tub with hot water. As the water begins to flow, Seraphim stares in amazement. She points at the device on the wall and asks about the magic tool. Jin pauses for a second before explaining, it's just a water heater. Now she's even more impressed. To her, this place is filled with advanced tools she has never seen before. Curious, she turns a nearby faucet and accidentally activates the shower, soaking herself completely. Jin quickly scolds her for messing around while she awkwardly admits she's never seen anything like this before. At this point, Jin is seriously confused. Even foreigners should know how basic things like this work, right? Trying to understand, he asks about her past again. This time, Seraphim lowers her head and sincerely apologizes. She asks him, honestly, to teach her? Jin just stares at her. Someone is asking him to teach them how to take a bath. Yeah, this situation just keeps getting weirder. But looking at her expression, he realizes she's not joking. She's completely serious. Letting out a small sigh, he decides to help. He brings her a towel and some clothes to change into. Grateful, she softly thanks him and asks him to call her Sarah. That simple smile catches Jin off guard, making him blush slightly. For now, he decides not to overthink things. At the very least, she doesn't seem like a bad person. Soon, Sarah is left alone. She looks around carefully before removing her clothes and stepping into the bath. At first, everything feels strange. The shower, the water pressure. But slowly, she gets used to it. Eventually, she sinks into the warm bathtub. For the first time in a while, she relaxes. The stress fades away as she enjoys the gentle warmth. A small drop of water suddenly falls nearby, making her glance up. That's when she notices the window and the peaceful view outside. For a moment, everything feels calm. Meanwhile, in another part of the house, Jin is facing a completely different kind of problem. A 29-year-old man, with zero experience dealing with girls, is now trying to pick out clothes for one. After a long and serious internal battle, he settles on the best option he has. A tracksuit. Not exactly fashionable, but hey, it works. He leaves the clothes and towel near the dressing area, but just as he turns, Sarah suddenly walks out, completely naked. For a few seconds, time itself seems to stop. The two lock eyes, and then Sarah lets out a loud scream. Jin panics instantly and rushes out, apologizing again and again, explaining that he didn't mean to see anything. Eventually, Sarah calms down and assures him she understands he had no bad intentions. Jin sighs in relief. Sarah tells him to forget about it, while Jin quickly reminds her about the towel and clothes. Like, please, for everyone's safety. A little while later, Sarah enters the living room again, this time fully dressed. Jin looks up and freezes for a second. She's wearing his old tracksuit, but somehow she makes it look stylish. That's honestly impressive. Most people would look like they just gave up on life in that outfit. She thanks him for the comfortable clothes and sits across from him. As Jin looks at her, he suddenly becomes very aware of water balloons. He quickly looks away, trying his best to act normal. Yeah, this is not easy for him. Clearing his throat, he suggests they eat something. Sarah hesitates at first, unsure if she should accept, but then her stomach lets out a loud growl. Well, that answers the question. Embarrassed, she quietly agrees. Jin heads to the kitchen and checks what he has. Not much, just some leftover miso soup, marinated vegetables, and eggs. Still, it's enough. He starts cooking. Hearing the sounds, Sarah offers to help, but Jin insists she relax since she's his guest. He keeps it simple, and soon, a warm, savory smell fills the house. Sarah sits there, trying to endure her hunger as her stomach continues to betray her every few seconds. Finally, Jin returns with the food. Simple dishes, but to Sarah, they look like a feast. She hesitates again, wondering if it's really okay to eat something this fancy. Jin quickly tells her it's just leftovers, nothing special, but just as she's about to start eating, she pauses. Her expression turns serious. She quietly wonders if she's supposed to eat with her hands. Jin blinks, then suggests chopsticks, but seeing how confused she looks, he quickly changes plans and brings her a knife and fork instead. Sarah smiles and thanks him again. Jin watches her carefully, still puzzled. She speaks Japanese perfectly, and yet she doesn't recognize the most basic parts of Japanese life. At this point, one thing is clear. Sarah is a complete mystery. Jin brings his hands together and quietly begins eating. Across from him, Sarah pauses, watching him with a confused expression. She doesn't touch the food yet. Instead, she asks about what he just did. Jin explains that it's a simple habit, a small prayer to show gratitude before eating. Sarah's eyes widen slightly. The idea surprises her, but she nods and carefully follows his example, copying his gesture before starting her meal. As she does, Jin can't help but notice her again. Even in his old tracksuit sitting at a simple table, she somehow looks unbelievably elegant. It's almost unfair. Sarah then points at the white grains in her bowl, asking what they are. Jin tells her it's rice, the same kind grown in fields like the one where she was found earlier. Curious, Sarah scoops up a small bite and tastes it. Her eyes light up instantly. She didn't expect something so simple to taste this good. Jin watches her reaction and feels oddly happy. Seeing someone enjoy the food he grew himself, it hits different. He suggests she try it with the other dishes, and Sarah eagerly listens. She picks up some sautéed eggplant and combines it with the rice. One bite later, she's completely sold. The combination is perfect. She continues eating with genuine excitement, clearly enjoying every bite. Jin quietly smiles to himself, feeling satisfied as he watches her. Then she moves on to the miso soup. After tasting it, she pauses again, but this time her expression softens. The warm flavor brings her a sense of comfort she didn't expect. Jin confirms her reaction with a small nod, and in that quiet moment, something hits him. It's been years since he last shared a meal with someone like this. No rush, no distractions, just simple food and quiet company. For a brief second, everything feels peaceful. Soon the meal comes to an end. Sarah leans back slightly, enjoying a cup of tea, looking completely satisfied. Then suddenly she realizes something important. She never asked his name. Turning to him, she asks properly this time. Jin introduces himself as Jin Mita, but Sarah tilts her head, confused. To her, it sounds like one long name. Jin explains the difference between a family name and a given name, something completely normal in Japan. This only makes Sarah more curious. She wonders if having such names means he's some kind of noble. Jin quickly shuts that idea down, explaining that nobles don't exist here and everyone has a surname. Now Sarah looks even more confused. At this point, Jin starts wondering how long she plans to keep up this female knight act. Sarah immediately reacts, firmly stating that she's not pretending, she truly is a knight. But before the moment can get serious, Jin notices something. There's a grain of rice stuck to her face. Right there, in plain sight. Sarah continues talking seriously about her identity, while Jin just stares at that single grain of rice, completely distracted. Finally, she notices his gaze, wipes her face, and looks a little embarrassed. Jin quickly looks away, pretending nothing happened. Yeah, smooth. Trying to refocus, he sits properly and asks her again, this time more seriously, where exactly she came from. Sarah takes a breath and explains that she was in the forest of the Zaig region, within the kingdom of Lephoria. Jin listens, and once again understands absolutely nothing. Seeing his confusion, Sarah decides she needs to explain things more clearly this time. But just as she prepares to give a proper explanation, Jin interrupts her, because somehow there's another grain of rice on her face. Far away from this peaceful countryside, deep inside the forest of the Zyger region, a fierce battle once takes place. A group of knights is surrounded by monsters. The situation is bad, really bad. Several knights are already injured, barely able to stand. And in the middle of it all, Sarah stands firm, guarding her wounded teammates. Her body is tired, her breathing heavy, but she refuses to step back. Seeing her team on the verge of collapse, she clenches her teeth and makes a decision. Without hesitation, she charges straight at the monsters. Her sudden move shocks everyone. Her teammates watch in disbelief as she fights head-on, creating an opening. She orders them to retreat while she holds the monsters back. There's no hesitation in her voice, only determination. As the others escape, Sarah leads the monsters away, pulling them deeper into the forest and farther from her team. Then begins a lonely fight. She battles them one after another, refusing to give up, but even she has limits. Slowly, her strength fades. Her movements grow weaker, her vision blurs, and at some point, she collapses. After that, everything goes blank. She doesn't even remember where she falls. The next thing she knows, she wakes up in the middle of Jin's rice field. Back in the present, Jin listens to her entire story. And honestly, he understands absolutely none of it. To him, it sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel. Trying to make sense of it, Sarah suggests that some kind of advanced magic might have transported her there. But Jin shakes his head. As far as he knows, places like Zyg or the Kingdom of Lephoria simply don't exist. Still, Sarah refuses to back down. For her, it's all real. Her expression slowly changes, becoming more serious. She starts worrying about her teammates, wondering if they made it out safely. Seeing her like that, Jin feels a bit stuck. He doesn't fully believe her, but at the same time, she doesn't look like she's lying either. Then suddenly, he remembers something. A map. He quickly pulls it up. Sarah watches curiously, thinking it's some kind of magical device again. Jin explains that it's just a normal tool in the modern world. Nothing special. He shows her the world map. Sarah leans closer, scanning it carefully. Then her expression freezes. The Kingdom of Lephoria isn't there. Not anywhere. Jin notices her reaction, but before he can say anything, Sarah quietly stands up. The room goes silent. Without saying much, she turns toward the exit. Jin is left confused, trying to understand what she's thinking. Before leaving, Sarah stops for a moment. She thanks him sincerely for everything he's done. Jin quickly asks where she's going, but instead of answering directly, she begins putting her armor back on. Then she finally says it. She's going back to her kingdom. She has to find her friends. Jin tries to stop her, but it's already too late. In one swift movement, Sarah leaps away. Just like that, gone. Jin stands there, completely stunned. The way she moves, the speed, the strength. Yeah, that's definitely not normal. At this point, even he has to admit this is way beyond cosplay. Sarah disappears into the distance, leaving behind nothing but a cloud of dust, like a charging bull that just ran through. Jin watches quietly. For a moment, he thinks about everything she said, all those strange stories. But then he shakes his head. No point overthinking it. She's gone now, and life goes on. Jin glances at the time and suddenly panics. He completely forgot. He still has to deliver his produce to the wholesaler. Jin heads back to his greenhouse, trying to return to his normal routine. He starts gathering fresh produce, focusing on his work. Even though Sarah's whole night cosplay situation still feels strange, he decides not to think too much about it. Better to just move on. But as he picks up a cucumber, something about it oddly reminds him of Sarah's sword. He pauses, stares at it for a second. Yeah, that's enough farming for today. He quickly shakes his head and tells himself to stop thinking about her. Because honestly, if vegetables are starting to remind him of swords, something is not right. As evening falls, Jin delivers his harvest to the wholesaler and begins driving back home. The sky darkens and the quiet road stretches ahead. But during the drive, he realizes something. Today has been exhausting, way more than usual. All he wants now is to go home, relax, and maybe enjoy a cold drink. Unfortunately, the universe has other plans. Suddenly, he slams the brakes. His car stops just in time to avoid hitting someone standing in the middle of the road. Annoyed, Jin rolls down the window, ready to scold the person. But then he sees who it is. Sarah. She stands there, completely still. Her expression is blank. But there's something else too. Sadness. Jin quickly parks the car and steps out. As he gets closer, he notices tears in her eyes. Sarah looks up and recognizes him. Jin asks if she managed to find what she was looking for. Quietly, she admits she couldn't find her kingdom. People nearby glance at her, clearly confused by her strange outfit and words. Jin notices this and agrees. It's not exactly a normal sight, but more importantly, he can see it. That sadness in her expression hasn't gone away. Remembering everything she told him earlier, Jin starts thinking, what if she wasn't lying? What if she really came from somewhere else? Sarah looks at him, confused, asking what he means. Jin takes a moment, then explains. He still finds her story hard to believe. It sounds impossible, but at the same time, her reactions, her confusion about basic things, the way she acts, it doesn't feel fake. So he says it. Maybe she really is from another world. For a moment, even saying it out loud sounds ridiculous. But somehow, it also makes sense. Sarah is surprised. She lets out a small, nervous laugh, struggling to accept it. The idea that she's been thrown into a completely different world feels unreal. Still, she can't deny it. Everything here is different. After a pause, she quietly thanks Jin for believing her. The two fall into an awkward silence. Then Jin clears his throat and suggests she come back to his house. It's already late and she has nowhere else to go. Sarah hesitates for a second, then agrees. Jin drives home with Sarah sitting in the back seat. The road is smooth and the car moves steadily through the quiet night. Sarah looks out the window, gazing at the unfamiliar sky above. Everything feels so far away. When they finally arrive, the atmosphere is calm again. Sarah seems a bit more composed now and decides to rest early. But even then, Jin notices something. She's holding herself together, trying not to show how confused and overwhelmed she really is. He can't help but admire that. Honestly, if he were in her position, he would have broken down hours ago. Not long after, Jin prepares some hot water and goes to check on her. But when he quietly looks in, he freezes. Sarah is sitting alone in a corner, crying. She tries her best to stay quiet, covering her face as tears fall nonstop. Jin watches for a moment, then slowly steps back. He doesn't say anything. He just gives her space. Sometimes that's all someone needs. Heading back to the kitchen, Jin decides to do something he can do. He starts preparing food for the next day. As he works, he remembers how much Sarah enjoyed the miso soup earlier, how it seemed to comfort her. So he decides to make something similar. He marinates fish with salted soy sauce and koji, preparing a simple but warm meal. Nothing fancy, but made with care. He recalls how grateful Sarah was earlier, even for something so basic. That thought makes him smile a little. He knows he can't solve her situation. He can't send her back to her world, but at the very least, he can make sure she eats well. So he plans a proper Japanese-style breakfast, something to recharge her, even just a little. Morning arrives quietly. Sarah slowly opens her eyes, her hair a complete mess. For a moment, she looks confused. Then it hits her. She fell asleep without even realizing it. As memories from yesterday come rushing back, a wave of anxiety creeps in again. The strange world, the unfamiliar place. Everything feels overwhelming. She takes a deep breath, then another. Calming herself, she decides not to overthink it, at least not right now. Walking over, she opens the window and freezes. Outside, a beautiful morning scene stretches across the countryside. The soft sunlight, the green fields, the peaceful air. It's nothing like what she's used to. For a moment, she just stands there in awe. Then, a delicious smell reaches her. Her stomach immediately growls. Yeah, peace and beauty are great, but food comes first. Meanwhile, Jin is already in the kitchen preparing breakfast. He moves calmly, finishing up the last few touches. Suddenly, Sarah appears behind him. Jin jumps slightly, caught off guard. It's been a while since someone casually shows up to greet him in the morning like this. He quickly regains himself and tells her where to place the glass he left in her room. Sarah nods and helps out. As they move around the kitchen together, Jin notices something. She looks a bit more cheerful today. Not completely fine, but better. And somehow that makes him smile. Soon, everything is ready. Fresh rice, warm miso soup, and a simple garnish of chopped green onions complete the meal. A classic Japanese-style breakfast. Sarah sits down and stares at the table. Her eyes widen. To her, this looks like a feast. Jin watches her reaction, feeling satisfied. Looks like his plan to cheer her up is working. They begin eating. Sarah picks up a small cherry tomato first. She takes a bite and instantly lights up, enjoying the sweet, fresh taste. She even comments on how good it is. She assumes it's a fruit. Jin casually corrects her. It's a vegetable. Sarah pauses, surprised. Vegetables can taste this good? Jin explains that these are the ones that couldn't be sold, but Sarah doesn't care. To her, they look and taste amazing anyway. Next, she tries the fish. The smell alone surprises her. It's pleasant, not strong or overwhelming. She takes a bite and is amazed by the rich, fatty texture. It's completely different from anything she's had before. She moves on to the rice, finding it simple but incredibly satisfying. And, of course, the miso soup. The moment she tastes it, her expression softens again. It's warm, soothing, and comforting, just like before. Then she mentions something interesting. She's never eaten fish that doesn't have a strong smell. Jin raises an eyebrow and explains that this one is salmon. He then asks if they eat fish in her world too. Sarah nods and explains. They have a fish called a donko. It's common and cheap, but it has a muddy, raw smell that never really goes away. Jin listens carefully and immediately understands. Yeah, that does not sound appetizing. Just imagining it is enough. For a second, he finds the idea of an otherworldly fish kind of interesting. But then Sarah suddenly groans. Her face twists into discomfort. She looks embarrassed. Turns out she's struggling to eat the salmon properly. Using a fork to handle fish is harder than she expected. Jin nods in agreement. Honestly, even for him, eating fish neatly can be tricky sometimes. So, yeah, no judgment here. As a knight, Sarah feels embarrassed. Struggling with something as simple as eating fish makes her lower her gaze in shame. But Jin doesn't make a big deal out of it. Instead, he calmly takes her plate. Using his chopsticks, he carefully separates the salmon into smaller, easier pieces. Problem solved. Well, but not exactly, because Sarah isn't even looking at the fish anymore. Her full attention is locked onto Jin's chopsticks. Jin notices and decides to teach her. He starts by showing the basic hand position, explaining how to hold them properly. To Sarah, the whole thing feels strange and unnatural, but she listens seriously and tries to copy him. Surprisingly, she gets the hang of it. At least holding them isn't the problem. Using them is a whole different story. When she tries to pick up the fish, it doesn't go very well. So Jin suggests starting with something easier like cucumbers. Sarah nods and tries again. This time she successfully picks one up. Victory. But just as she brings it toward her mouth, it slips and falls. Jin bursts out laughing. Sarah pouts instantly, clearly not amused. Still chuckling, Jin reassures her that she'll get better with practice. Hearing his encouragement, Sarah suddenly flinches and glances outside. Jin pauses. Right, he realizes his mistake. Talking about getting better with practice probably reminded her of something else. Something heavier. He quickly apologizes. For a moment, the mood shifts. Jin starts thinking again about her situation. Is there any way for her to return to her world? Sarah admits she doesn't know how she ended up here. She guesses it might be some kind of magical force, but when she checked Jin's rice field, she couldn't sense any magic at all. That's when Jin realizes she's already been investigating on her own. Sarah then calmly tells him not to worry. She's already made up her mind. If she can't go back, then she'll live in this world. She straightens up and confidently explains that she's skilled in combat. She could easily make a living by hunting monsters like orcs or goblins. Jin listens, then gently drops the truth. There are no monsters here, no orcs, no goblins, and definitely no night jobs. He even adds that Japan is one of the safest countries in the world. Sarah freezes. That information hits harder than anything so far. If there are no monsters, no battles, no nights, then how is she supposed to live? For a moment, uncertainty fills her expression, but she doesn't break. Instead, she decides she'll find some kind of job. Anything involving hard work or physical labor. Jin watches her, remembering how she jumped over walls like it was nothing. Yeah, she's definitely not normal. But then another thought hits him. In this world, without proper documents, like a family registry, it's almost impossible to get a job. The only path he can imagine for her isn't a good one, and that worries him. Sarah, unaware of his thoughts, thanks him for the meal and starts heading toward the door, ready to figure things out on her own. Jin blinks. Wait, she's really just going to leave like that? He tries to stop her, but Sarah has already made up her mind. She even starts talking about building her own night order, gathering mages from this world and finding a way back home. Jin just stands there, imagining all the ways this could go wrong, and none of them are good. As Sarah reaches the door, Jin suddenly calls out to her. An idea hits him. He asks her to stay, to live with him. Sarah turns back, surprised. For a second, even Jin realizes how that sounded. Yeah, that came out way too much like a proposal. He gets flustered instantly. Sarah walks closer, looking at him with hopeful eyes, asking if he really means it. Jin awkwardly explains himself. He can't offer much. No big salary, no luxury. The work will be tough, mostly farm labor. Sarah doesn't even hesitate. As long as she has a place to stay and food to eat, that's more than enough. Her face lights up with genuine happiness. Seeing that, Jin relaxes. Honestly, he could use the help anyway. And just like that, he decides. He hires her. Sarah, the knight from another world, bows her head in gratitude. And for some reason, Jin feels relieved. From that moment on, his quiet farming life changes completely, because now he's living with a knight from another world. 3 days later, it's Sarah's very first day helping Jin on the farm. Right from the start, Jin notices something. She's still carrying her sword. Of course she is. Sarah looks uneasy without it, almost like it's a part of her. Jin doesn't think it's a great idea, but seeing how serious she is about it, he decides to let it slide. For now. Still, he gives her a quick warning. In Japan, carrying blades longer than 6 centimeters is actually against the law. Sarah pauses, trying to imagine that length. She even compares it to a kitchen knife, looking genuinely curious. Yeah, explaining modern laws to a knight from another world is not something Jin ever thought he'd be doing. As they begin working, Sarah looks around the farm. It's quiet, peaceful, no monsters, no danger, no battles, just fields, plants, and fresh air. To her, it feels almost unreal. Jin, however, quickly adds one more rule: no randomly drawing her sword while working. Because, yeah, that would definitely cause problems. Soon, Jin guides her toward the greenhouse. The moment they step inside, Sarah's eyes light up. Rows of long, healthy eggplants stretch out before her. They look fresh, vibrant, and perfectly grown. She's genuinely impressed. Jin explains how the greenhouse works, how it controls the environment and allows crops to grow even out of season. Sarah listens carefully, clearly amazed. To her, this isn't farming. It's basically magic. While exploring, Sarah picks up a long eggplant, examining it closely. That's when Jin starts going off about different types of eggplants, how they grow, and what makes them unique. Sarah slowly turns toward him and points something out. He gets really talkative when it comes to vegetables. Jin pauses. Wait, does he? Sarah nods confidently, adding that he usually keeps a serious, stone-faced expression, but when it comes to farming, he changes completely. For a second, Jin doesn't know how to respond. Sarah smiles slightly and says it's obvious. He loves being a farmer. Jin immediately denies it, but honestly, that denial isn't very convincing. Sarah then compares it to herself and her attachment to her sword, making Jin even more awkward. Trying to change the topic, Jin brings out a cart filled with baskets. Sarah's attention shifts instantly. Good save. Jin begins teaching her how to harvest eggplants properly. He hands her a pair of scissors and shows exactly where to cut so the plant stays healthy and doesn't grow out of control. Sarah listens carefully. Then it's her turn. A bit nervous, she reaches out and grabs a large, smooth eggplant. Following Jin's instructions step by step, she carefully snips it off. And right at that moment, Jin suddenly shouts. Sarah jumps in shock. Her heart nearly stops. She immediately thinks she did something wrong. Her eyes start to water as she looks at him, worried. Jin bursts out laughing. He tells her it's fine. It was just his way of keeping things lively. Yeah, not the best timing for a joke. Sarah is not amused. In fact, she gets so annoyed that she almost reaches for her sword. Jin quickly backs off and apologizes. Yeah, lesson learned. As they continue working, the basket slowly starts to fill up. Sarah notices something. Jin is really fast, like really fast. He moves smoothly, harvesting one eggplant after another without hesitation. Jin casually explains that he's been doing this for years. That makes sense. But Sarah doesn't like being outdone. Determined, she declares that she'll become just as fast as him. Jin watches her try and fail, and try again. Her movements are clumsy, her timing is off, and she clearly struggles to keep up. But somehow, it's fun to watch. At first, Jin was worried about living with a knight from another world. Now, he's starting to enjoy it. The eggplants are finally harvested, neatly arranged in baskets. Sarah stands there staring at them in pure admiration. The way everything is organized, clean, and efficient, it impresses her more than she expected. Curious, she asks what comes next. Jin explains that they need to sort the eggplants before sending them out. But first, lunch. Back at the house, Sarah is already excited, wondering what Jin will cook this time. Jin decides to make something a little different. Tomato penne pasta with eggplant and tuna. Sarah immediately offers to help. Big mistake. Jin hands her a peeler and casually shows her how to use it. Sarah carefully tries it herself, and her eyes light up. It works so smoothly. To her, this simple tool feels surprisingly useful. Meanwhile, Jin prepares the tuna and starts cooking. As she works, Sarah glances at him and compliments his skills, clearly impressed that he's so good in the kitchen. Jin shrugs and explains it's just from years of living alone. Then, out of curiosity, he asks about her world. Sarah explains that where she comes from, men cooking is considered unmanly. It's usually something women do. Jin pauses for a second. Yeah, different worlds, different rules. After finishing with the vegetables, Sarah asks what to do next. Jin tells her to cut them diagonally. Sarah blinks. Diagonally? Seeing her confusion, Jin demonstrates slowly, showing the angle and how to slice properly. Sarah nods, determined. She grabs the kitchen knife and instantly holds it in the most dangerous way possible. Jin reacts immediately, stopping her before disaster strikes. Sarah turns to him, confused, asking what she did wrong. That's when it hits him. She has no idea what she's doing. Sarah apologizes softly, admitting the truth. She comes from a knight family. Since childhood, all she's focused on is sword fighting and horse riding. Cooking was never something she learned. She hesitates, then admits something else. She didn't say it earlier because she was afraid he might kick her out of the kitchen, but now she genuinely wants to learn. Jin looks at her for a moment, then sighs. Guess he's a teacher now too. He starts explaining properly, showing her how to hold the knife safely. While teaching, he can't help but mumble a few complaints like an old man, which honestly makes the whole situation kind of funny. At one point, they lean in at the same time, and their hair brushes against each other. Both freeze for a second. Jin quickly apologizes. Awkward as ever. Yeah, and this is going great. Still, the lesson continues. Sarah even experiments with the faucet again, still treating it like some kind of magical tool. Jin also shows her how to use the stove properly. Step by step, she learns. And honestly, she's trying really hard. Eventually, Jin takes over and finishes the cooking. Sarah stands nearby, completely focused. The smell fills the kitchen. It's rich, warm, and mouth-watering. By the time the dish is ready, Sarah's eyes are shining. They sit down and, as usual, express their gratitude before eating. Sarah picks up a slice of eggplant with her fork. Her heart is pounding a little. She still remembers how amazing it smelled while cooking. She takes a bite and immediately puts the whole piece in her mouth, even though it's hot. Yeah, patience is not her strong point, but the moment she tastes it, her face lights up with pure joy. The flavor is rich and satisfying. She moves on to the pasta and enjoys that just as much. After taking a sip of water, she excitedly declares it amazing. Jin explains how the tomato sauce pairs well with the tuna, keeping things simple. Sarah, however, focuses on something else. The eggplant. She praises it, saying it tastes incredible. Jin pauses. For a moment, he just looks at her. Then he quietly explains that this is his job. Growing vegetables, harvesting them, and sending them to supermarkets. Usually he never hears what people think after that. No feedback, no reactions. So hearing her say that actually means something. He tries to thank her. But Sarah, already halfway through her plate, immediately asks for more. Yeah, emotional moment ruined. Still, Jin can't help but smile. Meanwhile, at a small candy store, an elderly woman chats with a young girl named Kaho. She mentions hearing a rumor that Jin has married a foreign woman. Kaho freezes, then instantly denies it. No way that's true. The old woman tilts her head, confused. She swears she heard someone say they saw Jin walking around with a blonde girl recently. At the same time, somewhere else, a group of schoolgirls finished their classes. Among them is Alice Hojo, the youngest of the group. Curious, she asks her two friends if the rumor is true. She heard it from her mom and aunt. Meguru and Katori exchange a glance. Then both firmly shake their heads. There's no way. Absolutely no way. Right? Not long after hearing the rumor, Katori slows down, looking a bit unsure. She wonders out loud if it's really okay to suddenly show up at Jin's house like this. Meguru immediately sees through her. It's not just concern. Katori is curious too. With a small smile, Meguru reminds her that they've already come this far. Plus, Alice suggested visiting as well, right? At this point, turning back would just feel weird. And just like that, the two head straight to Jin's house. They arrive quickly and call out to him, but no response. They look at each other, confused. Where could he have gone this early in the morning? Meanwhile, in a completely different place, Jin stands there, staring in disbelief. Because right in front of him, Sarah is on top of a roof, fixing tiles like it's completely normal. Jin's brain just stops working for a second. Nearby, a woman named Minori calls out cheerfully to Sarah, while Sarah casually responds that her husband Jin seems worried. That single word, husband, hits very differently for both Jin and Minori. Jin nearly short-circuits. Sarah, realizing the situation, tries to explain, but before she can, Jin walks straight toward her, completely overwhelmed. Standing beside Minori is her husband Shigeru, quietly watching everything unfold like it's some kind of drama show. Now let's rewind a bit. About 2 hours earlier, Sarah heads out for her usual morning walk. To her, it's important to stay in shape. Jin, however, is a bit worried. Still, Sarah confidently tells him she needs to learn the area, just in case monsters ever appear. Jin doesn't even argue anymore. He just tells her to come back before work starts. Simple enough. Except, she doesn't come back. Time passes. Jin starts getting concerned. He heads out to look for her, wondering where she could have gone. He even remembers teaching her how to read a clock. But Sarah always insisted her sense of time was perfect. Yeah, us about that. As Jin searches, he runs into an older woman, Minori. Even though she's not actually his grandmother, she treats him like family, having looked after him when he was a child. Minori casually tells him that his wife is helping them. Jin freezes. His what? And just like that, everything starts making sense. Back to the present. Jin stands there, staring blankly at Sarah, who now looks a little embarrassed. He glances up at the roof. It's perfectly fixed. Clean work. He slowly looks back at her. Wait, how does she even know how to do this? Sarah explains that Shigeru showed her how. Jin is surprised, but even more shocked when she casually adds that she had training from military engineers back in her world. Of course she did. At this point, Jin is almost afraid to ask anything else. But one question still bothers him. How did she suddenly become his wife? Sarah awkwardly drops the hammer she's holding and starts explaining. Apparently, she just went along with it. Jin blinks. That's it? Turns out earlier Minori saw Sarah coming out of Jin's house and naturally assumed she was his wife. Caught off guard, Sarah simply nodded. Jin mentally facepalms. That escalated way too fast. But from Sarah's point of view, it made sense. The older couple clearly knew Jin well. A weak excuse wouldn't work, and explaining she's from another world. Yeah, that would sound even crazier. So she picked the simplest option. Wife! Jin, now visibly flustered, realizes something else. Minori and Shigeru are both staring at them, with warm, proud smiles, like parents watching their kid finally settle down. Jin wants to disappear. Sarah, noticing his reaction, quietly asks if he's uncomfortable with people thinking she's his wife. Jin pauses, then honestly admits he doesn't really mind. What he's more worried about is how she feels about it, Sarah explains calmly. In this situation, her story wouldn't be accepted. Pretending to be his wife is the easiest way to stay with him, without raising suspicion in the village. Jin thinks about it. She's not wrong. In a small countryside like this, outsiders already stand out. This lie might actually protect her. Still, one concern remains. Is she really okay with this? Sarah nods, but then adds one important condition. Even if she's known as his wife, there will be no physical relationship. Jin freezes. His brain immediately starts imagining things he absolutely shouldn't be imagining right now. And just like that, he turns bright red. For the first time, completely flustered, he blurts out that he has no intention of making any moves on her. Yeah, this fake marriage situation just got very real. Not long after, the newly formed couple finishes repairing the roof for the elderly pair. Shigeru looks satisfied, thanking them warmly for their help. Jin casually tells him that next time, he should probably hire a professional. But deep down, Jin already knows. Yeah, they're definitely getting called again. As a small reward, Shigeru brings out some snacks and invites them to rest on the porch. Minori soon joins them, placing a tray down with a traditional Japanese sweet, yokan. Sarah tilts her head, curious. She's never seen anything like it before. She asks Jin about it, and he explains that it's made from red beans and sugar, giving it a sweet taste. Sarah looks at the dark-colored treat with a bit of hesitation. Honestly, it does look a little suspicious. Jin encourages her to try it anyway. Carefully, she takes a bite, and her eyes widen. The texture is soft, smooth, and the flavor is rich yet gentle. It's completely different from what she expected. Even Jin is a little surprised. The taste is better than he remembers. Minori then serves iced green tea alongside it. Jin takes a sip and nods slightly. The refreshing bitterness balances out the sweetness perfectly. But then he notices something. Sarah has gone quiet. He glances over and sees her completely absorbed in the food, looking genuinely happy. She quickly declares how delicious it is and goes in for another bite. This time she comments on the soft, mild sweetness. It's not overwhelming, just right. She explains that sweets in her world are much heavier, covered in thick sugar, to the point where one bite is enough for most people. Jin remembers that Japan used to have similar overly sweet candies too. Minori smiles warmly, happy that Sarah is enjoying the treat. She offers her more. Sarah freezes for a second, then lights up with excitement, asking if it's really okay. And just like that, she happily moves closer to Minori. At the same time, Shigeru leans toward Jin and quietly comments that Minori seems to be enjoying her time with Sarah. Jin watches the scene and notices something. Sarah is basically being won over with sweets, hook, line, and sinker. Shigeru suddenly grins and says Jin managed to find himself a wonderful wife. Minori immediately agrees. Jin stiffens. He knows this is all just part of the act, a way to make Sarah's presence seem normal. So he goes along with it. He casually replies that Sarah is a good wife. Honestly, almost too good for him. Across from him, Sarah starts nervously shaking her glass. Jin notices, and now he's flustered too. Wait, wasn't she supposed to be okay with this? The older couple, clearly enjoying themselves, lean in and ask the next big question. Where did he meet her? Jin freezes. Yeah, there's no way he's answering that. Without missing a beat, he suddenly stands up and tells Sarah it's time to head home. Smooth escape. Meanwhile, in a nearby store, Kaho scrolls through her phone. Her brother seems to be going crazy over the rumor that Jin has a wife. She laughs at his reaction, but then her expression slowly changes. Because now, she's curious too. Just who exactly is Jin's wife? The scene opens with Jin finishing his harvest, gathering everything he needs from the field. He looks at the heavy baskets and quietly debates how he is going to carry all of them to the work table without breaking his back. Before he can figure it out, Sarah steps in. With no effort at all, she lifts the baskets like they weigh nothing. Jin just stands there, staring. It finally hits him. Magic is not just real, it is completely unfair. He thanks her, a little amazed, a little jealous. The work is done much faster than he expected. Sarah explains that on Earth, magic comes from something called a magical organ. It strengthens the body and allows people to do things that should not be possible. Jin immediately wonders if he can use magic too. Sarah shuts that idea down instantly. No magical organ, no magic. Simple as that. Jin's shoulders drop. He was already imagining growing vegetables at lightning speed. Now that dream disappears just as quickly. Sarah, on the other hand, looks relieved. She seems glad that his big ambition with magic was farming. Right then, someone suddenly shouts Jin's name from outside. Sarah stiffens, thinking it might be an enemy attack. Jin, however, recognizes the voice immediately. The door swings open and a loud, rough-looking guy walks in like he owns the place. Jin looks annoyed. At least use the doorbell. The man turns out to be Kato, Jin's childhood friend. He heard a rumor that Jin somehow got married, and clearly he could not stay away. He grabs Jin's shoulder and jokes that he thought Jin would stay single forever. Honestly, fair assumption. Before Jin can respond, Sarah walks out from the kitchen. Her bright presence instantly changes the mood. Kaito freezes, completely caught off guard. Jin introduces them. Kaito struggles to process what he is seeing. A beautiful woman appearing out of nowhere, and somehow she is Jin's wife? Jin casually says he picked her up from his rice field. That does not help. Sarah notices the doubt on Kaito's face. Without hesitation, she grabs Jin's arm and boldly declares that they are deeply in love. Both men are stunned. Then she quietly whispers to Jin that she is just trying to make it believable. Kaito looks defeated, but then he notices something else. Jin actually looks relaxed, even happy. Kaito smiles a little and wonders if maybe farming is not such a bad life after all. Suddenly, another voice cuts in. A girl calls out Kaito's name, clearly annoyed. She complains about being left alone to handle the shop. When she steps inside, she stops mid-sentence after seeing Sarah. She is impressed. Very impressed. Sarah politely introduces herself, and after apologizing for her earlier tone, the girl introduces herself as Kaho. The two girls stare at each other for a moment, as if they instantly click for some reason. Meanwhile, Kaito tries to stick around longer, curious about Sarah, but Kaho quickly reminds him that their candy store still exists and needs attention. Sarah gets interested when she hears about the shop, asking questions with genuine curiosity. While Kaito explains, Kaho quietly pulls Jin aside. Jin notices her hesitant expression and starts to worry. He assumes she might have figured out that Sarah is not really his wife. His mind races, trying to come up with an explanation that makes even a little sense. Kaho leans in closer. Jin braces himself, but instead of anything serious, she drops a completely unexpected comment. She points out that Sarah is not wearing any undergarments. Jin freezes. Out of all the possibilities, this was not even on the list. Kaho looks slightly disgusted and questions Jin's taste, wondering what kind of person just allows that without saying anything. Jin stands there, speechless, because, honestly, there is no good answer to that. Jin tries to explain the situation, saying there is a complicated reason behind everything. He admits he was planning to talk to Sarah about it, but she is still new to Japan and not really ready to go shopping on her own. Kaho suggests something obvious. Jin could have just gone with her. Then she pauses and realizes, yeah, that might be awkward. A guy buying women's underwear is not exactly a comfortable mission, so she quickly decides she will go with Sarah instead. Jin feels immediate relief. Finally, a problem solved. But of course, nothing comes for free. Kaho turns to him and asks for a favor in return. Jin gets nervous right away and warns her not to pick anything expensive. Fair. Very fair. Not long after, Kaito and Kaho head back home to take care of their candy store, leaving Jin and Sarah alone again. Jin then tells Sarah they're going out to buy her some clothes. Sarah looks confused. She honestly thinks what she is wearing is perfectly fine. Jin gently explains that he has other things to buy anyway, so they can just get her clothes at the same time. Simple logic. Sarah watches him for a moment and quietly thinks that he is actually a really kind person. A little later, while she is playing around in the bath, Sarah finishes up and steps out, only to find Jin waiting. He tells her that Kaho has already arrived to pick them up. Sarah is surprised, but then something else catches her attention. Jin is wearing different clothes. She pauses, staring at him. Jin notices and casually explains that he usually wears simple or work clothes, nothing special. He even suggests getting similar clothes for her. Kaho shows up soon after, and this time, Jin takes the driver's seat. Kaho, however, looks a bit concerned. She points out Sarah's sword, clearly not something you see every day. Jin quickly brushes it off, saying it is just a tradition from her country, basically a decorative item. Smooth answer. Questionable, but smooth. They all get into the car and Sarah is instantly amazed. The whole thing feels new to her. Kaho helps her with the seatbelt, guiding her like it is the most normal thing in the world. Then, out of nowhere, Kaho casually guesses Sarah's size. Jin almost chokes on the spot. Some conversations really do not need to happen in a moving car. As Jin starts driving, Kaho keeps chatting with Sarah, explaining things along the way. Sarah looks outside, completely fascinated by the passing fields and scenery. She leans closer to the window, trying to take it all in. Jin notices and rolls the window down. The sudden rush of wind surprises her at first, but then she smiles, enjoying the cool breeze like a kid experiencing it for the first time. Jin glances at her again, clearly distracted. For a moment, he is completely taken by how beautiful she looks. Kaho immediately calls him out and tells him to focus on the road. Probably a good idea. To lighten the mood, she suggests playing some games during the ride. Before long, they reach their destination. Kaho steps out excited, already thinking about the store she wants to visit. But Sarah does not move. She just stands there, staring. In front of her is a massive shopping mall, far bigger than anything she expected. Her eyes widen as she tries to take it all in. At one point, she even mistakes a model in a giant advertisement for the owner of the place. Honestly, with how big the building is, that guess almost makes sense. As soon as Sarah steps inside the shopping mall, she freezes. Her eyes widen as she looks around at the huge space, bright lights, and endless stores. For a moment, she genuinely wonders if they somehow traveled to a big city. Jin quickly reassures her. No, this is still just a countryside town, which somehow makes it even crazier. Kaho notices Sarah's reaction and casually asks if this is her first time in a place like this. Jin jumps in fast, making up a story about Sarah growing up somewhere very remote. He then asks Kaho to guide her since she does not know much about these things. Kaho agrees without hesitation. Jin quietly feels impressed. That was smooth teamwork. Meanwhile, Sarah continues to look around in awe. The decorations, the lights, everything feels magical to her. At one point, she even starts wondering if there are mages on Earth too. Then she spots a statue. She stares at it with respect, assuming it must be some great hero. Jin takes one look and realizes, yeah, that is just Colonel Sanders. He quickly grabs her and pulls her away before things get any more confusing. When Kaho returns, she tells them the clothing store is on the 3rd floor and suggests using the escalator. Sarah watches it carefully, clearly trying to hide how amazed she is. Jin notices and explains how it works. At the same time, he realizes something else. People keep staring at Sarah, and honestly, it is not hard to see why. When they reach the 3rd floor, Sarah finally mentions it. She feels like everyone has been looking at her. Kaho confirms it has been happening since they entered the mall. Sarah gets a little confused. Other women are wearing stylish clothes while she is dressed pretty simply. Kaho agrees the tracksuit is not exactly fashionable, then suddenly realizes the real reason. It is the sword. Of course it is the sword. Trying to handle the situation carefully, Kaho brings up Sarah's traditions and suggests they buy her some modern clothes. That way she can blend in more easily. Sarah looks surprised, then grateful. She thanks Kaho in a very formal way, almost like a samurai. Kaho pauses for a second, clearly noticing that. Jin, on the other hand, just smiles. He is glad they are getting along. He knows there are many things he cannot do for Sarah, so having Kaho around helps a lot. Soon they arrive at a store. Sarah steps inside and immediately feels uncomfortable. Something about the place feels different. Kaho explains they are here to buy undergarments for her. That clears it up and somehow makes it even more awkward. A store employee approaches and starts taking Sarah's measurements. Sarah gets nervous, not used to this kind of situation at all. Jin slowly starts backing away. Sarah notices and looks confused. Jin explains that men are not really supposed to stay in places like this. Sarah looks a little down. Jin understands how she feels, but there is not much he can do. Kaho quickly comes up with a solution. She tells Jin to sit on a bench right outside so Sarah can still see him. That way, she will feel more at ease. Jin hesitates. Sitting outside a store like that? Yeah, it might look a bit suspicious. Kaho reminds him to think of it as helping his wife. That line hits. Jin gives up and goes to sit on the bench, trying his best to act normal while the girls continue shopping inside. Inside the store, Sarah slowly calms down as the employee helps her. Outside, Jin starts worrying about something else entirely. Money. Because judging by how things are going, this shopping trip is not going to be cheap. To make things worse, he can hear bits of conversation from inside. Discussions about sizes, styles, and choices drift out, making him more and more uncomfortable. Then the employee starts checking things more carefully and the noise level rises. Jin just sits there, staring into space, questioning his life decisions. This day really took a turn he did not expect. Not long after the girls wrap up their shopping in the undergarment store, Sarah steps out looking excited, almost impressed by how useful something so simple can be. She even apologizes when Kaho jokingly says the shopkeeper might have influenced her a bit too much. Kaho quickly moves on to the next mission: casual clothes. The moment Jin hears that, his wallet quietly starts panicking. He suddenly realizes something important. Sarah came here with nothing. No extra clothes, no basics, nothing at all. This is about to get expensive. Kaho, however, takes the lead. She decides to find good quality clothes that are not too pricey, so Sarah does not feel bad about it. Great plan for Sarah. Terrible news for Jin. At the next store, Kaho goes all out. She keeps handing Sarah different outfits, making her try one after another. She praises Sarah's figure, which only leads to more outfits being added to the pile. Jin watches from the side, slowly losing peace of mind. Each new outfit feels like another hit to his savings. In the end, Sarah only picks a few items, clearly trying to hold back because she does not want to burden Jin. Kaho insists it is just the bare minimum. Jin looks at the two huge shopping bags. Bare minimum? Sure. Meanwhile, Sarah is already thinking about how she can repay him with her future work. Jin suggests they move on and buy only the essentials now, hoping to limit the damage. But Kaho quickly reminds him that she still has her share in all of this. That does not sound good. Before Jin can recover, the trio walks into a luxury brand store. Kaho looks excited. Jin leans over and quietly explains to Sarah that this place is expensive. Very expensive. Sarah looks around, amazed. The clothes here are completely different from anything she has seen before. Then her eyes land on a dress. She pauses. As a former knight, she remembers once wanting to wear something like that. But back then, armor always came first. Kaho notices immediately and tells her to try it on. Sarah hesitates, even looks toward Jin for help, but Kaho is already pushing her toward the fitting room. 5 minutes later, Kaho walks out first wearing a jacket. Jin takes one look and says it does not suit her. Big mistake. Kaho gets annoyed and says it is the latest trend, then calls Jin clueless for being too used to countryside life. Jin wisely decides not to argue and instead looks for Sarah. Kaho goes to bring her out. A moment later, she pulls Sarah from the dressing room. Jin freezes. Sarah is wearing a simple one-piece dress and somehow it fits her perfectly. She looks completely different, elegant, soft, stunning. Jin cannot even find the right words. Sarah, on the other hand, feels embarrassed. She wonders if she looks strange wearing something like this, especially since she used to be a knight. Jin quickly reassures her. She looks good. Really good. Kaho jumps in with a teasing smile, pointing out that Jin was completely speechless the moment she walked out. Those words hit Sarah in a strange way. For a second, she remembers her days of strict training, always believing armor was enough. Now, standing there, she realizes something new. It feels nice to look good. Before the moment can settle, Kaho grabs her again and drags her off to try even more outfits. Jin watches this, and for once, he actually smiles. Seeing Sarah enjoy herself makes all the stress feel worth it. Eventually, the shopping comes to an end. Jin is honestly impressed. Kaho managed to spend money very efficiently, maybe a little too efficiently. Kaho then wonders out loud if it was okay that Sarah did not buy the dress she liked. Sarah simply smiles, saying she was happy just trying it on. Jin says nothing. Instead, he quietly hands her a bag. Sarah looks inside. It is the dress, the same one she tried earlier. Jin casually says he just felt like buying it. Sarah's face lights up. She thanks him warmly and says she will treasure it forever. Jin feels satisfied hearing that. Kaho, of course, cannot let the moment stay serious for too long. She jokes that if Sarah is going to treasure it forever, maybe she should ask for a few more outfits too, because clearly, one dress is not going to be enough.
Here I am, know it's been a while.